The night that changed everything. The fluorescent lights in cell block Delta never turned off. That night, the silence was louder than screams. Former correctional officer Daniel Rourke still remembers the sound, a faint metallic tap, tap, tap echoing through the hallway. He thought it was just another inmate scratching at his cell door. But when he got closer, he realized it wasn't coming from inside the cell. It was coming from behind the wall. Moments later, the entire block plunged into darkness. Every lock clicked open at once. A system failure no one could explain. Daniel drew his baton, heart pounding. He wasn't facing prisoners anymore. He was facing something organized, a network built within the concrete walls of America's most secure prison, ADX Florence. What he witnessed that night: guards trembling, alarms dead, and inmates moving like ghosts through steel doors, would haunt him forever. And it was the moment Daniel realized the truth. Supermax prisons don't just contain danger, they create it. The new recruit. When Daniel first joined ADX Florence, he believed in law, order, and the badge. They told him this was the cleanest, safest prison in America. But on day one, that illusion shattered. The air smelled of bleach and fear. The halls echoed with whispers, not words. Prisoners communicating through vents, pipes, and even Morse code on steel. His supervisor, Captain Morales, pulled him aside and said quietly, "Never look too long into an inmate's eyes. They'll see your weakness before you do." Daniel laughed it off until he met Unit H, known by guards as Hell's Wing. Here, prisoners were kept in 23-hour solitary confinement. Men who hadn't touched sunlight in years. Each cell had only a bed, a toilet, and a slot for food, yet somehow these men ran operations outside these walls. The first week was calm, too calm, until the night Daniel found an envelope in his locker with a single note. "We see you." That was the beginning of his fear and the end of his loyalty to silence. Extreme event. Later that night, a camera in Hell's Wing recorded something impossible. A prisoner who hadn't left a cell in 3 years standing outside it. The secret network. The warden said it was a technical glitch. But Daniel knew better. Inmates were running an underground communication system, hidden under the guards' noses. They called it the line. It used old wiring tunnels that connected cells across different units. Prisoners passed messages, traded contraband, and even coordinated violence, all while being completely isolated. One inmate, known only as Reaper, controlled the system. His tattoos told stories. Skulls are enemies, bars for years. He never spoke, but every riot that happened started with his signal. 1 tap, then 2. Daniel tried reporting it. His report vanished. He tried asking other guards. They told him to drop it. That's when he learned the scariest truth of all. Not all guards were clean. Some of them smuggled information. Others looked away. The line between guard and inmate blurred. Less extreme moment. Daniel considered quitting, but then Captain Morales pulled him aside again. "You think you're here to stop evil? No, kid. You're here to survive it." That night, Morales disappeared. His locker was empty. No one mentioned his name again. Extreme event. 2 days later, Daniel found a smear of blood beneath the same security camera, and carved into floor, beneath it were 2 words. He talked. The system of silence. The longer Daniel stayed, the more he realized ADX wasn't just a prison. It was a machine. Every sound, every light, every door was designed to control the mind. Prisoners started to hallucinate voices. Some stopped speaking altogether. Others carved messages into their skin just to be remembered. Daniel started to crack too. He began hearing tapping in his sleep, the same pattern he heard from the line. He asked for reassignment. Denied. He asked for counseling. Denied. Instead, they gave him double shifts. In the break room, a senior officer whispered, "Keep your mouth shut or you'll end up in there with them." Daniel began keeping notes, dates, times, everything. He noticed something terrifying. Whenever an inmate snapped, it was always the day after they were given a certain meal, gray meat loaf tasteless, but chemically laced with something that made them docile. He started connecting the dots until someone cut power to his unit mid-shift. Extreme event. When the lights flickered back, one of the isolation doors was wide open. The inmate inside had vanished, leaving only his uniform neatly folded on the bed and a note that read, "You're next, Officer Rourke." The night of the blackout. Everything Daniel feared came true. The entire prison plunged into darkness at 11:47 p.m. Backup generators failed. Security locks disengaged. Through the night vision monitors, Daniel saw shadows moving, not random chaos, but coordinated patterns. He recognized the tapping again. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. It was the Reaper's signal. A guard screamed over the radio, "They're out! They're out!" Then static. Daniel grabbed his flashlight, sprinting down the corridor. Every cell door he passed was open. But the strangest part, none of the inmates were running toward freedom. They were moving deeper into the prison, toward the central block. When he reached it, Daniel froze. Reaper stood in front of him, calm, smiling, his hands covered in tattoos that glowed faintly under the emergency light. "You can't keep a man locked away forever," Reaper said. "Not when the cage itself is broken." Then everything went black. Extreme event. The next morning, 12 guards were found unconscious. One was missing, and surveillance footage of that night completely erased. The confession. Daniel resigned the next day. Weeks later, he was called in by federal investigators. They asked him what happened. He told them everything about the line, the blackout, and the Reaper, but the lead agent only smiled and said, "There's no record of anyone by that name at ADX Florence." When Daniel showed his notes, the agent slid them back. "If you want to keep your pension, you never saw any of this." Now, years later, Daniel's breaking his silence. He says ADX Florence wasn't unique. Pelican Bay, Rikers, and others share the same secrets. Communication networks, psychological control, and power structures hidden from the public. He ends his testimony with a chilling line. "The most dangerous men in Supermax prisons aren't always the ones behind bars. Sometimes they're the ones holding the keys." Extreme event. Days after his interview aired online, Daniel's house was broken into. Nothing was stolen, except his original journals. The aftermath. After the break-in, Daniel stopped sleeping. Every noise outside his window felt like a warning. He'd moved 3 times in 2 months, but the feeling of being watched never left. Then one night, a black SUV parked across from his new apartment. No plates, no movement, just headlights off, engine running. He went to the police. They checked, came back confused. No vehicle matching that description in the system. Daniel knew then this wasn't about him quitting. It was about what he'd seen. He reached out to an investigative journalist named Sarah Cole, who'd done pieces on prison corruption. When she picked up, her first words were, "You're the 3rd former guard to contact me this year." That's when Daniel realized he wasn't alone. They met in a diner off Highway 24. She showed him files, names of other officers who vanished after trying to expose internal cover-ups. Each file ended the same way. Case closed, no foul play. Less extreme moment. Daniel told her everything. About the Reaper, the blackout, the erased footage, the mind-altering food. She didn't blink. Just whispered, "They're running experiments." Extreme event. 2 weeks later, Sarah Cole's car was found abandoned near a forest road in Colorado. The passenger seat held Daniel's old ID badge. The experiment. Daniel went back to digging. He used old security clearance contacts to access restricted files. Names of inmates transferred without records, budgets that didn't exist, supplies ordered under psychological conditioning programs. He found one folder labeled Project Silence. The documents revealed something disturbing. Certain Supermax prisons, including ADX Florence, Pelican Bay, and a private facility in Texas, had been part of a behavioral control experiment. The goal, to test how isolation and environmental manipulation affected obedience, violence, and psychological collapse. Food, sound, light, all variables. The gray loaf he'd seen, it wasn't punishment food. It was part of the experiment. The Reaper, according to records, was an inmate. He was a test subject, one of the first men to endure 10 years of total isolation. His real name, Vincent Hale. But according to official records, Hale had died in 2013. Daniel had spoken to him in 2018. Less extreme moment. Daniel sent copies of the documents to the press anonymously. No one published. No one replied. One email bounced back with short message. Drop it or you'll end up like Hale. Extreme event. The next morning, Daniel's laptop burst into flames on his desk. A short circuit, the fire report said. But he never plugged it in. The Reaper's message. Weeks passed. Daniel thought it was over until he received a brown envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo of cell 42, the Reaper's old cell, and on the back, written in smeared ink, "It's not over." Along with it was a small flash drive. He plugged it into a borrowed computer at a library. The screen went black. Then words appeared. They're building something new. Underneath. The file contained drone footage, old blueprints of an underground expansion beneath ADX Florence labeled Sublevel 9. It showed a vast network of tunnels, testing rooms, and what looked like glass chambers, each large enough for a human being. Daniel didn't understand what he was seeing until he reached the last clip, a video of Hale, alive, staring straight into the camera, whispering, "They said I'd be free when I broke." Less extreme moment. Daniel printed the photos and mailed copies to 5 news outlets. None responded. But 3 days later, one of the envelopes came back, unopened, with a red stamp. Returned to sender, deceased. Extreme event. That night, Daniel's apartment door was kicked in. When he woke up, everything was gone. The footage, the papers, the flash drive. Only a single message remained, written on his bathroom mirror in steam. Stop digging. The revelation. Daniel vanished for 6 months. When he resurfaced, he was living under a different name in northern Montana. He'd started recording himself on an old camcorder, short video logs about what really happens in Supermax prisons. One of those videos leaked onto the internet. In it, Daniel looked exhausted, his beard untrimmed, his hands trembling. People think Supermax prisons keep monsters locked up. But after what I've seen, I think they make them. He explained how constant isolation rewires a brain, that some inmates lose the concept of time, others their sense of self. He talked about how the guards start hearing things too. Footsteps, voices, even their own names whispered through vents. You can't be around that much darkness, he said, without it learning your name. Less extreme moment. The video was taken down within 24 hours, but not before thousands had seen it. Forums erupted. Whistleblowers came forward. The government issued a statement denying everything. Extreme event. A week later, the local sheriff found Daniel's cabin burned to the ground. Inside, they found his badge, melted but still legible. Next to it, a fresh carving on the wood beam above the ashes. He talked. The revelation. Daniel vanished for 6 months. When he resurfaced, he was living under a different name in northern Montana. He'd started recording himself on an old camcorder, short video logs about what really happens in Supermax prisons. One of those videos leaked onto the internet. In it, Daniel looked exhausted, his beard untrimmed, his hands trembling. People think Supermax prisons keep monsters locked up. But after what I've seen, I think they make them. He explained how constant isolation rewires a brain, that some inmates lose the concept of time, others their sense of self. He talked about how the guards start hearing things too. Footsteps, voices, even their own names whispered through vents. You can't be around that much darkness, he said, without it learning your name. Less extreme moment. The video was taken down within 24 hours, but not before thousands had seen it. Forums erupted. Whistleblowers came forward. The government issued a statement denying everything. Extreme event. A week later, the local sheriff found Daniel's cabin burned to the ground. Inside, they found his badge, melted but still legible. Next to it, a fresh carving on the wood beam above the ashes. He talked. The truth behind the walls. Months after Daniel's death, a federal report quietly surfaced online. It confirmed fragments of his claims. Behavioral experiments had taken place in at least 3 U.S. Supermax facilities between 2008 and 2016. All were labeled under psychological adaptation programs. Funding? Untraceable. Oversight? None. The files revealed that Project Silence was real and that a classified section of ADX Florence had indeed been built underground. Sublevel 9. But what it was used for remains redacted. One internal memo read, "Subjects are showing advanced adaptability. Prolonged isolation increases obedience rates. Continued data extraction." That memo was dated 1 month after Hale's supposed death. Less extreme moment. Whistleblowers claimed that several raced inmates were later seen at other facilities under new identities. But no proof was ever made public. Extreme event. 2 years later, a documentary crew entered the now-abandoned Pelican Bay SHU unit to film. Their camera picked up faint audio in the background, a rhythmic metallic tapping echoing through the concrete. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. The same sound Daniel heard that night. The same sound that started it all. The dark web files. 3 years after Daniel's death, a mysterious folder appeared on the dark web. Its name, the Line ADX Archive. It contained encrypted videos, scanned documents, and recorded radio chatter between guards from ADX Florence Pelican Bay and Rikers Island. Most of the files were corrupted, static, distortion, missing audio. But one video stood out. It showed Daniel, alive. His face was pale, his eyes darting toward the camera, like he was being watched. He whispered, "If you're seeing this, it means they found me again." Behind him, faint tapping echoed. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. He continued. They said it was just behavioral research. But it was more than that. They were testing how far the human mind could bend before it breaks and then weaponizing it. The video abruptly cut off, replaced by footage from a Rikers Island security feed. It showed inmates standing perfectly still in their cells at 3 a.m., every one of them tapping the same rhythm on their walls. Less extreme moment. Online investigators began connecting patterns between Supermax prisons, similar food supplies, same psychological rehabilitation officers, and identical blackout procedures. Extreme event. A hacker traced the archives upload to a location near Pelican Bay Prison. 2 weeks later, he vanished. His apartment was found empty, except for one thing written in black marker on the wall. He tapped back. The Pelican Bay Connection. Pelican Bay State Prison, Crescent City, California, known for its infamous security housing unit, SHU. This was where the government supposedly ended Project Silence. But according to new whistleblowers, it's where it spread. Former inmates described hearing tapping patterns that matched Daniel's recordings. Some claimed guards encouraged behavior, saying it was part of a mental discipline program. One former SHU inmate, Marcus Tone Alvarez, recalled, "They kept us alone for so long that we started communicating through taps. Then one day, the guards started responding back. That's when I knew we weren't the ones in control anymore. The taps, it turned out, were coded triggers, conditioning signals built into daily routines. Sleep cycles, meal times, even cell checks followed specific rhythmic intervals." Daniel's notes, recovered online, described this as behavioral synchronization, turning men into programmable subjects without their knowledge. Less extreme moment. Investigators tried to get access to the SHU wing records. The files were missing, reportedly lost in a data migration. Extreme event. In 2024, Pelican Bay experienced an unexplained power outage, identical to the blackout Daniel witnessed at ADX. When power returned, 6 cells were empty. The inmates were never found. Rikers Island, the prototype. Before ADX and Pelican Bay perfected isolation, the blueprint began in New York, at Rikers Island. Leaked documents showed Rikers was a testing ground for early control methods, deprivation cycles, synchronized lockdowns, and controlled communication experiments. A retired officer named Harold Denton revealed that inmates in 1999 were subjected to sound experiments, ultra-low frequencies broadcasted through vents to induce anxiety or compliance. They called it noise therapy, he said. But it wasn't therapy, it was control. He described how some inmates began hallucinating, hearing orders, even names, coming from walls. Others would sit perfectly still for hours, waiting for a signal that never came. When Harold tried reporting it, he was reassigned, then retired early for medical reasons. His pension came with a non-disclosure agreement. Less extreme moment. Years later, he found Daniel's story online. Every word he said was true, Harold told a reporter. And if you think it ended with him, you're wrong. It's still going. Extreme event. 1 week after that interview aired, Harold's apartment caught fire. Investigators ruled it an accident, even though the fire started from a power outlet that wasn't connected to anything. The tap returns. By 2025, conspiracy forums, journalists, and ex-guards all started reporting the same thing. Strange tapping sounds in Supermax cell recordings across different states. Security staff claimed they were hearing it during night shifts from empty cells. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. Always the same rhythm. At first, they thought it was a prank, until one officer in Texas recorded it. When sound analysts slowed the audio down, they discovered faint words embedded in the frequency. We are still here. Experts believed it was just a coincidence, feedback, or radio interference. But Daniel's followers online had another theory. The line, the prisoner communication network, never died. It had become digital. Less extreme moment. An anonymous whistleblower sent journalists screenshots of code found in the prison's AI surveillance system. Hidden inside were rhythmic binary patterns, matching the tapping Daniel once described. Extreme event. Within a week, that AI system went offline in 3 separate facilities at once. All data from those systems permanently deleted. And then one last message appeared on a prison terminal before it shut down. We hear you. The final warning. Months later, a documentary filmmaker named Elliot Grant began compiling all the pieces: Daniel's videos, Pelican Bay reports, the Dark Web archive, and Riker's testimony. He traveled to Colorado to film near ADX Florence. At 2:13 a.m., while recording exterior shots, his microphone picked up faint tapping from deep underground. He paused the recording, listened, tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. It was unmistakable. The same rhythm Daniel heard years ago. Elliot uploaded his footage the next day, titled The Line Lives. The video went viral, millions of views in 24 hours. Then just as quickly it vanished, every copy deleted, every backup corrupted. Less extreme moment. People called it a hoax. Officials denied everything. But someone kept reposting the clip, each time with the same caption. They're not prisoners anymore. Extreme event. A month later, a maintenance crew near ADX Florence discovered an unregistered elevator shaft sealed behind concrete. It descended 9 levels underground, deeper than any official blueprint. Inside the shaft, carved into the steel door, were 2 chilling words. He talked. The new whistleblower. 6 months after Elliot Grant's disappearance, a new figure appeared online under the alias Unit 9. He claimed to be a current guard working deep inside ADX Florence. His first post read, "I've seen things that don't belong in a prison. They told us it's a research floor. But whatever's down there, it's not human anymore." He described an underground facility sealed from the rest of the prison, accessible only by biometric scanners and rotating codes that changed every hour. No one knew who authorized it. Inside, he said there were 24 glass chambers, each filled with dim blue light and constant white noise. He called them isolation modules. Each module held a person, or something that used to be one. Less extreme moment. Unit 9 said the subjects never spoke, never moved, but every night they tapped all at once, the same chilling rhythm. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. He uploaded short audio clips, but within hours his account was deleted. Then his final message appeared. It's spreading beyond the walls. Extreme event. That same week, ADX Florence reported an unexplained system malfunction. Every digital lock in the lower sublevels disengaged for exactly 6 minutes and 14 seconds. No explanation was ever given. The footage that should not exist. Weeks later, an anonymous journalist from Denver received a small padded envelope. No sender, no note, just a memory card labeled Rourke, Camera 7. When she opened it, the first file began with static, then slowly focused. It was footage from inside sublevel 9. The camera shook as it followed two guards walking through a corridor lined with glass cells. Through the fog glass, shapes moved, twitching, distorted silhouettes. And then one turned its head directly toward the lens. Its face was unrecognizable, not from injury, but from something else, as if isolation itself had reshaped it. A distorted voice whispered, "We remember you, Daniel." The footage cut to black. Less extreme moment. Analysts confirmed the video's metadata matched ADX Florence's internal timestamp system, meaning the recording was authentic. But before the journalist could release it, her apartment was broken into. The footage vanished. Only a piece of paper remained, taped to her window. He talked. Extreme event. 2 days later, her name disappeared from the Denver Post staff page. No public explanation. The return of Captain Morales. Daniel believed Morales was dead, but leaked security footage from Pelican Bay showed him alive. Older, silent, and wearing a black uniform with no insignia. He was walking down a corridor identical to sublevel 9. Every few steps, he'd pause and tap on the wall. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. Analysts enhanced the footage and discovered another figure walking behind him. Tall, bald, heavily tattooed. The Reaper. It seemed Morales and Hale were now working together. The revelation sent shockwaves online. Conspiracy theorists claimed they were continuing Project Silence in private labs. Others believed Morales himself had become a subject, no longer a guard, but a carrier. Less extreme moment. A surviving memo from 2023 stated, Subject R, Hale, and Handler M, Morales demonstrate full cognitive synchronization. Phase 4 successful. Extreme event. That same month, a blackout struck Pelican Bay, Rikers Island, and a new federal facility in Nevada, all at the exact same minute. Power logs show the outage lasted 6 minutes and 14 seconds, the same number from ADX Florence's incident. The final message. 3 months later, a video appeared briefly on a private streaming link. It was labeled Rourke_transmission_final to MP4. Daniel was alive, older, thinner, with scars on his hands. He sat in what looked like a bunker, the walls covered with maps of U.S. prisons. He spoke calmly. If this reaches you, it means I failed to stop them. Project Silence isn't a prison experiment anymore. It's a control model. They learned that isolation breaks the mind, but rhythm binds it. They're using it everywhere now, schools, institutions, even the internet. He leaned closer. The tapping you hear isn't just inside the walls anymore. It's inside us. In the background, faint tapping began again, the same rhythm echoing through the static. Daniel looked toward the noise and whispered his final words. They're listening. The screen flickered, then showed coordinates. 37.6232 degrees north, 106.4170 degrees west, deep in Colorado wilderness. When investigators went there weeks later, they found nothing but an abandoned communications tower and a rusted steel door buried in the ground. Carved into it, faint but visible, 2 words. Project Silence. The Echo Protocol. 2 years after Daniel's final message, a new name appeared in leaked federal correspondence. The Echo Protocol. It was described as the next stage of behavioral containment. Instead of physical isolation, it focused on digital isolation, testing how sound, rhythm, and frequency could influence thought patterns through technology. An anonymous IT contractor from Pelican Bay claimed the prison's new AI inmate monitoring system wasn't just recording, it was broadcasting. It sent inaudible low-frequency signals across the cell blocks, ones that could only be detected by certain microphones. He said, It's not just about watching them anymore. It's about programming them. The system used rhythmic pulses, short bursts of static, matching the same sequence that haunted Daniel Rourke's recordings. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. Less extreme moment. According to the contractor, these signals could influence emotion, calm inmates, increase aggression, or suppress reaction times. He warned it was no longer limited to Supermax prisons. Extreme event. Within weeks of his confession, The contractor was found dead in his car. The radio was on, playing nothing but static. Forensic reports said the sound equipment had no power source. The hidden recordings, a former Pelican Bay nurse named Janelle Moore came forward next. She revealed that guards were forced to wear earpieces transmitting a security frequency during night shifts. But when she accidentally listened in, she didn't hear dispatch codes or orders. She heard the tapping. It wasn't random, she said. It was talking. The rhythm formed patterns, repeating names, times, and numbers. When she reported it, her supervisor told her, "You didn't hear anything. The system hears for you." She quit a week later, but before she left, she copied several internal voice logs. The last one was dated April 14th, 2025, and contained Daniel's voice, calm, whispering the words. The walls remember. Less extreme moment. She uploaded the files to a private server for protection. A week later, the site went offline. Her entire account history was wiped. Extreme event. Security footage from her home's neighborhood showed a van pulling up at 3:16 a.m. Janelle Moore was never seen again. The last survivor, the only known survivor connected to Project Silent investigation, was an ex-inmate named Marcus Tone Alvarez, the same man who once spoke about the guards tapping back. Now free, Marcus lived in constant paranoia. He claimed he still heard the rhythm, even outside prison. It's in the traffic lights, the hum of power lines, the clicks and phone calls. Once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. He believed the rhythm wasn't just psychological. It was a signal system, spreading beyond prison infrastructure, embedding itself into technology that surrounded everyday life. He described one night when he woke up and found his digital clock blinking 6:14 a.m., the same number from the blackouts. Then the radio beside his bed clicked on by itself. Through the static came that sound. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. Marcus disappeared 2 days later after leaving a voicemail for a journalist. His last words were, "They're out. The line's gone wireless." What really happens in Supermax prisons? Visual. Dim blue floodlights illuminating endless concrete hallways. Static hum fades into silence. Narrator's voice, slow, heavy tone. Most people believe Supermax prisons exist to keep the world safe from monsters. But what if all along they were building new ones? Behind every concrete wall, there's a rhythm, mechanical, repetitive, designed to break men until they forget who they are. Guards, inmates, scientists, all trapped in the same machine. Project Silence wasn't about control. It was about transformation. It proved that when you isolate a mind long enough, you can rebuild it piece by piece until it listens to only one voice. That's what really happens in Supermax prisons. They don't just contain danger, they manufacture obedience. And obedience is the most dangerous weapon of all. The story of Daniel Rourke, Captain Morales, and the Reaper may sound like a legend, but every legend begins with truth. And somewhere, deep under Colorado, the echoes of that truth still tap against the walls, waiting for someone to listen. Sound fades in faint tapping. Tap, tap, pause, tap, tap, tap. Screen text appears in silence. For security reasons, this documentary has been edited. ADX Florence, Pelican Bay, and Rikers Island declined to comment. The line remains unconfirmed.